Thank you. All right, good evening, everybody. Today is Thursday, August 27th. Welcome to the Westwood School Committee meeting. I'm going to start this meeting by calling the meeting to order and doing a roll call attendance. So, Mayor Plotkin.
Here.
Charlie Donahue. Okay, we don't have Charlie yet. Tony Mullen.
Here.
Amanda Phillips.
Here.
And I am here. I'm Carol Lewis. And before we get started, really diving into our agenda, we're going to recognize the live broadcast. Live broadcast and on-stream is available through Westwood Media Center and also online at westwood.k12.ma.us/live. This is to provide real-time public access to the activities of the school committee in accordance with the March 12, 2020 Executive Order of Governor Baker. So let's get started with the superintendent's report. Emily?
Great, thank you. Good evening. So the superintendent's report tonight is not surprisingly focused on fall reopening. There has been a tremendous amount happening in the district. A lot of work is ongoing to get the school year off to a good start. So I'm going to start by saying that we did, since our last meeting, publish for the community the comprehensive fall reopening plan. And so I'm hoping that people have had the opportunity to really read that and digest it. It's a lot of information. And we have been engaged in a collective bargaining process with our Teachers Association. And so, I would say that has been a challenging process, I think, for everybody involved. There just are, there are a lot of concerns to work through, a lot of things on people's minds. The model that we are reopening with is just very, very different in a lot of critical ways in terms of how we operate in a school building. So there's been a lot to work through. But I am happy to inform the school committee that as of this afternoon, we have reached a tentative agreement with the WTA. I want to thank the members of the bargaining teams for all of their work in this process. And so now, at this point, we have a tentative agreement, and it, of course, still is subject to ratification. So I want to clarify that for the public. The next step in the process is for the school committee to review the contents of the memorandum of agreement, and we'll do that tonight in executive session. And then you would subsequently need to take a ratification vote. And similarly, the WTA leadership will present the contents of the MOA to their members and then take their ratification vote. So we hope that the ratification votes will be completed by early next week. So with any luck, we're sort of bringing this process into the finish. So in the meantime, I do know that families have been waiting to hear about the start dates for school. And so I am able to share some information tonight about what the plan is. Again, these plans are still tentative and subject to ratification. But I'm going to, let me just share my screen here and show you what the plan is. Are you able to see that?
Yes.
Maker? Yes.
We
Okay.
can see.
All right. So, one of the things that we have been discussing over the last several weeks and, throughout the process of planning for reopening, I think what becomes very clear is that there are many, many logistics to think through. Lots of things that are going to be new, protocols that we need to have in place to keep everybody healthy and safe. And we want to make sure that we do a good job and that we are able to implement those things well. So this is our plan. As we had previously said, the first day of school will be September 14th. The week of September 14th the hybrid schedule that we outlined in the fall reopening plan would begin for students who are in pre-K, K1, 2, 3, 6, 9, and 12. And then also for the students who are designated as high needs. So we would begin, and of course, you know that our fall reopening plan is that pre-K, K, and 1 and high needs are all slated to come in person 4 days a week, right? So they would start with that schedule. And then the students in 3, 6, 9, and 12 would begin their hybrid schedule with the Monday cohorts and the Thursday cohorts. We are really invested in making this successful. And so for that first week, this will allow us to deploy some other adults to get into those K1, 2, and 3 classrooms to provide some extra support to make sure that students are fully oriented to the safety protocols, to the technology that they'll need to be using when they're at home. We want to try to help them to be as independent as we can. So we'll be working on those kinds of issues. That week of September 14th, grades 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 11 do start school, but they will be learning remotely using the same schedule that is in the fall reopening plan. So you remember that one of the hallmarks of our plan is that we wanted to have the same schedule for each model. So students would be logging on in the morning, they'd be following their class schedule remotely. And then the week of September 21st, we would phase in 3 more grades. So another grade at each level. We'd phase in grade 4, 7, and 11 would begin their hybrid schedule. Grades 5, 8, and 10 would again remain remote, but still attending school. And then by the week of September 28th, those remaining 3 grades join and everybody is in by the end of September. So this is the tentative plan, and I think I'm hopeful that it will allow us to get things off to a good start.
Right. Okay. That's
Okay.
great. I think that's an important message to get to parents, particularly at this time when school is just around the corner. And so I'm sure that parents are appreciating the fact that they're getting this level of detail at this point, even when we haven't come to a fully ratified agreement. If you don't mind at this point, I'd just like to make a statement to parents, because this is really getting our kids to school on September 14th is really a team effort. And I want parents to know that we appreciate your patience as we've worked tirelessly on this reopening plan. As Emily indicated, we're optimistic that the district team and the Westwood Teachers Association will finalize an agreement very shortly. Both sides of the bargaining table have really stepped up to ensure a safe and successful opening. But in order for our reopening plan to truly be successful, we need you, the parents and guardians, to help your children step up as well. It's a daunting challenge, we know, to live and learn responsibly during a pandemic, one that has completely disrupted all of our lives. And in order to prevail in these extraordinary times, and in order for us to ensure that our schools reopen and remain open, we have to work together. So parents and guardians, please talk to your children, work with your children, and set the right example to ensure that we are all taking the necessary precautions to keep everyone in our school community safe. Taking such precautions can be inconvenient and even annoying. No one enjoys wearing a mask or physically distancing when trying to socialize and connect with peers, friends, teachers, or family. Our kids, particularly in the coming weeks, are going to feel that pull to engage in otherwise what would be typical behaviors that could really endanger our school community's health. So please, please continue to ensure that your children are socializing safely, wearing masks, and physically distancing. Help them to embrace the mantra, Mask up, 6 feet apart. Please remind them that socializing safely will protect them, and their families, and will protect their teachers and their families. Let's make it our goal to never have to quarantine and never contribute to an outbreak in this community. Let's work together to ensure a successful school year, and not only the safety of the school community, but the safety of the community as a whole. Again, I'm thanking all of you for your continued patience in this process as we navigate this new normal. That's all I have to say on that.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. I think that is important. We've really been talking a lot about how we kind of have to create some community mindedness about all these protocols that we're putting into place, and that everybody needs to kind of think about how their behavior impacts the other members of the community. So we'll really be working on that culture this fall. So we've been doing a lot of work operationally to get ready. The buildings, I think, are in good shape. I want to thank the operations department. They've just been doing a lot of work getting the buildings clean and ready, and arranging furniture, clearing furniture, right? We're creating these physically distanced classrooms, putting up signage, and a host of issues. Principals have been working hard on scheduling issues. I know that cohort assignments went out for elementary and middle school students, and we appreciate people's patience as we work through the master scheduling issues at the high school, which have proven to be quite complicated. But I believe that student schedules, so not just cohort assignments, but I think actual schedules will be going out to high school students on Monday, fingers crossed. Just to follow up on our prior school committee meeting, we have made a decision about daily symptom screening. So as I recall, we were trying to determine if we were going to do something to actually have people attest on a daily basis that they had checked symptoms, and the committee had really encouraged us to pursue that. And so we have now decided that we'll be using an app that's called School Dismissal Manager, which I know some of the elementary schools are already using for the purpose of dismissal, but now we'll be using it across the district for a different purpose. And basically, it's a very quick way on an app that a parent each morning will attest that they have screened their student and that they are symptom free, and we will provide the particular list of symptoms that we would be looking for, and just attest that that is the case. We have a similar method for all faculty and staff as well, so we will also be daily attesting that we've done a symptom screen. We've had this system in place for staff members all summer. And I have to say, I'll say personally, as someone who does this each morning, I think it's just good just to take a moment every morning to be mindful, to just make sure that, I'm in good shape and healthy and able to enter the building, because of course we will be expecting people to stay home if they are symptomatic. So a couple other updates. Having gotten people's final decisions about students who want to be fully remote, we have been able to work out some of the details around staffing and grouping students. And the way that it is shaking out, it looks like we will have a fully remote pre-K and K, so pre-K and a kindergarten combined as one fully remote cohort, a fully remote grade 1 and a fully remote grade 2. So these classes will be taught by Westwood educators, but the remote cohort may draw students from more than one elementary school, right? So they're drawing from students across the district in order to make an actual cohort. That's a class size. And at the middle school, students who opted to be fully remote will also be taught in fully remote cohorts, again, with Westwood teachers, with Thurston Middle School teachers. At the other grades, the remote students will be virtually attending the in-person class the way that the hybrid students do on their at-home days. So that is our plan there. And now I'm just going to ask Steve Allette if he just wants to say a quick word about technology, because there's so much going on with technology in terms of this hybrid plan. There he is. Hi, Steve.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Yes, we have been extremely busy getting ready for technology in the district. Kind of a couple different broad categories. We've made a number of purchases for staff. We have purchased iPads and Apple Pencils for all teachers, and that will allow them to mirror content from the iPad virtually to the learners that are not on site, while simultaneously they can display it in the classroom to the in-person students. The other nice thing about the iPads, the teachers won't be tethered to the laptop. Given the portability of the iPad, they'll be able to kind of move around the front of the room. Granted, there are restrictions to where they can go in the room, but we're trying to mimic kind of the way teaching used to be pre-pandemic. So we've come up with what I think is a pretty good solution. That final batch of iPads actually arrived for teachers today, and we are scrambling to get them in their hands first thing next week. So there's been this incredible run on technology. Like every district in the country is buying up devices. So we're waiting patiently, but things are starting to arrive. Each classroom will also be equipped with a speaker microphone unit that will allow the teacher to talk naturally in the classroom and be heard by the remote students. Conversely, remote students can ask a question and their voice will be amplified in the classroom. So it's kind of a two-way thing. Those speakers are being shipped on Monday, and we should have them by the end of next week. We've also invested in some software platforms for students and teachers. We invested in the premium version of Zoom. Nearpod, which is an interactive kind of presentation software platform. And we're acquiring some productivity apps that teachers will use on the iPads to make them more effective when they're using them in the classroom. On the student side, as
Yes.
I think you already, pardon me? Oh, thought I heard a question. On the student side, all pre-K, K-1 students will have an iPad. Those iPads just shipped today, so we will have them ready for the start of school. Grade 2 students will have a touchscreen Chromebook. Those have not shipped yet, and I'm waiting anxiously to make sure they'll get here. And I'm fairly optimistic we'll have them by the middle of September. And as you know, all grade students of grades 3 and up have Chromebooks already, although we did refresh Chromebooks for certain grades and did distributions this week. So that's kind of the hardware acquisition side of things. We're also planning some professional development for teachers. Next week, we'll focus on showing teachers how to manage the physical setup of the technology in the classroom and also give them time to practice. We've refined the steps to a point where I think the process of joining all students, both remote and in person, should be relatively pain-free. We've definitely want to make that as simple as possible for teachers so that they can kind of focus on the teaching side of things. The week after next, we are going to provide staff with a menu of options to learn about instructional strategies to leverage the available technology most effectively. And I'm thinking about how to use these tools like Nearpods to engage the in-person and remote learners. Creating efficient delivery of lessons that aren't bogged down by the tech, but can be streamlined. And also just things like planning lessons that are kind of balance the screen and off-screen activities, especially since we're going to have longer blocks. So, the high school is going to have 75-minute periods. So, we need to think about how we can do instruction where the kids aren't necessarily just watching the screen during that entire time. So that's the focus of kind of the professional development that we're thinking of for the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Steve.
Oh, you're welcome.
Emily, could I say something really quickly?
Sure. Yeah.
to give a shout out, the Foundation for Westwood Education has committed to helping to fund some of our sort of reopening efforts, and they are particularly interested in helping us with that Nearpod subscription. So we're really excited and appreciative of their support. So.
Yes, thanks for jumping in with that, Allison. Yes, we're
Thank you,
very
Allison.
appreciative of their support. It's great. And so just lastly, I wanted to say a couple of words about athletics. I have to say I don't know that all of the specifics have been worked out, but I know people are curious, so I won't get into sort of all the ins and outs, but I will just say broadly that it's my understanding that the TVL athletic directors and principals have met to discuss the guidance that came out about athletics, and that at this point, the plan would be that the fall season could begin for practices on September 26th, with the exception of golf, which could begin earlier on September 18th. The plan is, though, that both football and volleyball will be moved to this new floating season that the MIA created. They're calling it Fall 2. I believe it starts sometime in February. And so those two sports will be moved. And the regular fall sports season would end by November 20th. So there are a lot of other things going on that I'm sure that our athletic director will communicate about specifically, but I did just want to sort of give people that broad news about what's happening. There are other things. So we're looking at a pod model so that competitions really would just be among a small group of teams that are sort of related geographically. And so we would be playing interscholastic competitions, but with a smaller group. And I think that's about what I know, but I am sure that that more information will be coming soon. I think a lot of this decision making is still in some flux at this point. So I think, Carol, I will stop there. That's it for the superintendent's report. I think you're muted, Carol.
Everybody wishes they had a mute button for me, I guess, right? I'm sorry about that. Maybe just people in my house. Anyway, what I was saying was we all recognize all the work that has gone into this fall reopening, and we thank all the parties involved, teachers, administration, and so forth. What an undertaking this is. So again, we appreciate all the work that you all are doing. We're going to move on from the superintendent's report to the discussion items, of which we have one, which is the first reading of the policy, the face mask policy. So were you putting up some slides for that, Emily?
Well, I thought I would put the policy up on the screen in case there's anything that the committee wants to talk about. I'm being texted that cross country is also starting at the same time as golf. So there's some information for cross country runners. So this is the first reading of the face mask policy, and it's largely based on the MASC model policy with a few changes made that we thought would be important for us. And so I would just emphasize a couple of things that I think would be important for families to know. So I first want to remind people that it would be the intent in the Western Public Schools, according to this policy, that all school community members would be wearing masks. So that's from pre-K on up. When you read the policy, there are, of course, there's a possibility for medical exemptions with documentation. But we think that would be a very small number of
Did I just lose you?
guidance, health authorities. Oh, lose me?
I don't know, maybe it was just.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear
I
you.
think we lost you just for a couple minutes, a couple
Right.
seconds there.
If you just
Couple
back up
seconds.
a bit.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
back. Good. The other thing that I just want to emphasize, and we will send clear information to parents about sort of what constitutes an acceptable mask. That will be coming soon. But I just thought I'd highlight here that based on guidance from health authorities, we will not be allowing neck gaiters, open chin triangle bandanas, or face coverings that contain valves, mesh material, or holes. That none of those things would be considered an appropriate mask. And so they have to be masks that fully cover the nose and mouth, are secure under the chin, are made with at least 2 layers of breathable material, fit snugly but comfortably against the side of the face, and are secured with ties or ear loops. So I think that's probably something we've all become familiar with now, sort of what constitutes a good mask. But I had been getting some questions about things like neck gaiters. They will not be allowed under this policy. And so I think those are the things that I guess further, that we will be asking that a student's mask be provided by the student's family. So kids would bring their own mask. I don't know about you, but I'm finding that masks turn out to be a very personal thing, subject to personal preference. And so people can bring their own. Staff members will also do the same, but we of course do have a supply of disposable masks in all of the school buildings in the event that somebody forgets theirs, or if there was breakage or some such thing. And the policy does spell out that, we expect that school community members will comply with this policy. And, if there were an issue, of course, the building principal would consult with the parent or guardian to try to understand what the concern was. But the policy does specify that a student who refuses to wear a face mask and doesn't fall within one of these special policy exemptions would be subject to student handbook discipline, and we would not allow someone to attend in person if they were not able to comply with this expectation. So this is a first reading. I think, Carol, you're muted again.
Does anyone have any questions about the policy at this point?
So overall, I think it looks great. I think we may just need to, your previous comment about what sports are going to do, we just should meet, different sports are handling this differently. So we may just need to have a consistent perspective depending on how that shakes out on masks as well. In theory, most of these sports are outside, but I know different soccer, for example, in Westwood, youth soccer is having, I think, requiring masks, even though it's outside. So we may just want to, once that becomes clearer.
Yeah, no, thanks for saying that. I think, there was all kinds of guidance that came out about athletics, and masks is one of the issues. So yeah, I think that's important. We've got to keep our eye on that.
Emily, can I make a quick comment on
Sure.
the mechanism? So in the event that a parent feels that their child qualifies for one of the exemptions, Student Services will be developing a procedure for how a doctor's note could be received. The plan is right now to receive them through Student Services because we would consider them a confidential student record, and we would receive them appropriately. So if the school committee, if it looks like you're going to keep that part in, I'd like to get started tonight and next week, working on that procedure. So as soon as this is enforced, we can share that with families.
Thanks,
Does
Abby.
does the policy cover what happens if a student shows up to school and with an inappropriate mask?
Yeah, so we would supply them on that day with a disposable mask. And the expectation, and the expectation would be that we would work with the family to say you need to get a mask that follows the parameters of the policy. Mm-hmm.
But they wouldn't, be denied. I mean, you just give them a mask, right? They wouldn't have to go home and get them.
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
okay. I just want to
Like
make
the
sure.
kid who forgets his pencil. We'll give you a pencil once, right? Yeah. Right.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions before we move on to public participation or comments? Okay. So we will move on then to public participation. So As you all may or may not know, public participation, this is just what it says. This is the opportunity for members of the public to voice concerns, ask questions, make comments on school-related issues. Because we are in a remote style meeting, in accordance with the law, we are asking folks if they would like to participate in writing. And you, whoever you are out there, can go to westwood.k12.ma.us/live. All comments have to be directed to me as the chair. And when at the point that we don't receive any more in the queue, I will close this public participation portion of the meeting. Each one of the comments that we received or questions will be read aloud. I will require that there be a name and address for each comment in order for it to be read. So at this point, if you haven't submitted a comment and would like to do so, now's the time. And I'm going to ask John Chancerulo to read the comments that are in the queue at this point.
Wendy Thurmond of 472 Far Reach Road writes, I don't envy any of the decisions you, state officials, teachers, and parents have to make right now. What I don't understand is why the teachers union is not prioritizing our students. It seems as if the union is using our children as pawns. So now I understand the union is advising teachers not to teach from the classroom. These actions will cause long-standing repercussions for children. Support for teachers in this state is dwindling. I've always felt teachers were the real heroes in kids' life. Talk to people right now, and many believe the heads of teachers' unions are diminishing respect for the profession. There are a lot of frontline heroes in this pandemic: grocery store workers, postal workers, sanitation workers, truckers, store clerks, medical professionals, sanitation crews, and nursing homes. The list goes on. The only group failing to be the heroes is the heads of teachers' unions, falsely guiding members. Shame on them for putting the motives first and not the children's well-being. I vote Democrat, so this is not a political agenda. I beg of you to think of how you are widening the divide between the haves and the have-nots. Education is the key to success in life. Not having in-person learning is denying children the right to thrive. I would not be able to sleep at night knowing that. If you need substitute teachers to fill the void, I am willing to help. I will do whatever I can to make sure all kids in our town get the education they need to succeed. Susan Gaffney of 140 Conant Road writes, I think it is absolutely imperative that our children get back into a physical classroom in September. We have had 145 cases of COVID in Westwood since January, and our positivity rate is 0.64%. These very low levels could linger for months, and we must not be afraid to educate and socialize our children. The lasting effects of this education gap and the social isolation are immeasurable and will be felt for an extended time to come. I implore the school committee to do everything within their power to get the kids into the schools with or without the union. Westwood is fortunate to have resources available, and they should all be brought to bear for the youth of this community. Catherine Travers of Alder Road writes, with a statewide infection rate of 1.1%, the actual data does not support a remote learning environment. The success of camps and in-person learning across the country, and quite frankly the world, show the effectiveness of policies and procedures to keep all individuals safe from infection. We need the teachers and the school committee to understand that remote learning is not safe for the well-being of our children as a whole. It was not successful, plain and simple. It seems that children have become a pawn in a political game, which is devastating and also frightening to watch as a parent. Amanda Pizzuto of 150 Pleasant Valley Road writes, it is disheartening to learn that 70% of the teachers in Westwood do not wish to return to the classroom this fall. Westwood is considered low risk with minimal cases of COVID-19, and the rest of us have found a way to return to work while minimizing our risks of contracting COVID-19. Remote learning proved to be ineffective last spring and did nothing but add additional stress onto parents who are also trying to work to provide for their families. I also find it hypocritical that many people who are opposed to returning to school have been traveling and dining out all summer. All of the private schools have found a way to return to in-person learning and have proven that it can be done safely. Let's get our children back to school. Helen Roberts of 2 Fox Meadow Drive writes, back to school. Our kids need an education. We need to find a way to get them safely back into school. Megan Brink of 47 Briar Lane writes, Thank you to Abigail Hanscom and all her special education administrators for making such a huge effort to keep the CPAC community informed about everything from distance learning to extended school year and now fall reopening. Abby and many members of her team have been on Zoom calls with our community every other week since the school closure in March. You've answered our questions and addressed our concerns. We are so grateful. Imar McGuire Shy of 29 Fox Meadow Drive writes, we really hope teachers come back to teach live. Many of us have been working outside our homes for months now. We have used our masks, washed our hands, and we have been safe. Our children have gone to camp wearing the masks, practiced good hygiene, and they have stayed safe all summer. The teachers are getting what they have requested. The desks are spaced and they will have masks. It really seems like the union is digging their heels in. Hashtag back to school. Antigone Grasso of 44 Oak Street writes, I know that Superintendent Parks and the school committee members have been working hard to implement the hybrid model starting September 14th, and that 91% of Westwood parents have indicated that they support in-person learning for our students. I also know that there has been pressure from some Westwood teachers to move to a full remote model due to fear for safety. It is important to note that the hybrid model is currently a compromise as the data still supports a full in-person return. The World Health Organization and the CDC recommend in-person learning when community positivity rates are below 5%. Westwood is currently at 0.95% and has been below 2.25% since July 8th. A hybrid model is a compromise. The American Academy of Pediatrics and the CDC both state that the harm done to the children by not going to school far outweighs potential harm from COVID-19. A hybrid model is a compromise. The AAP and DESE, through consultation with medical experts, supported 3 feet between students to maximize in-person learning. Westwood is moving forward with 6 feet. A hybrid model is a compromise. While we will start the year in a hybrid model, I ask our leaders in education to outline what community milestones must be achieved before we can return to full in-person instruction. In addition, how will educators assess the success of the hybrid model, as that should also inform when to return to full in-person instruction. The next comment is a communal one from many people. Amanda and Michael Minerva, Jessica Imbornone, Hillary Mosca, Sheila Black, Anne Marie Farrisee, Jennifer Murphy, and Renee and Elizabeth Gauthier. I'm going to assume their addresses are respective. 83 Spellman Road, 119 Blue Hill Drive, 159 Canton Street, 157 Forbes Road, 72 Briar Lane, 98 Forbes Road, and 170 Downey Street. The group writes, thank you for all of your hard work and effort in planning the hybrid model for the fall reopening of school. We hope that you will continue to consider the recommendation made by Commissioner Riley that states, our guidance has previously indicated that districts that have adopted a hybrid or remote learning model should prioritize high-needs students for full-time in-person learning. I recommend these districts also further prioritize children of teachers for full-time in-person instruction when feasible. Since the models will vary by district, districts will decide locally what constitutes full-time instruction for these students. Thank you for your attention and consideration of this recommendation. Harley Pease of 369 High Street asks, will neck gaiters be allowed? I've read that many studies that state that they do not help at all. I feel like it is in the best interest of public health to disallow neck gaiters altogether. Christina Martin of 23 Brookfield Road writes, can you please make public the set of criteria that will be used to determine when it is either safe for kids to return to school, fully in-person school, or when the risk has increased such that students will be switched to fully remote learning? Sarah Waterman of 9 Pheasant Hill writes, I would like to ask for the committee's support in the safety of the town's teachers and staff. I know I speak for many teachers who know in their heart that remote learning is not ideal or perfect. However, it is the safest choice for our community right now. Thank you again for listening to the Teachers Union and our ideas. Donna Morrison of 303 Oak Street writes, seeing as teachers are to report on Monday, August 31st, what is the last day of negotiation with WTA, nurses, and bus drivers? There are currently over 20 jobs to be filled before then. How confident are you that they will all be filled by Monday? Meg Maloney of 133 Pond Plain Road writes, as fellow educators and parents of Westwood students, we're counting on you to keep our children and the teachers of Westwood safe. We want safe working conditions for Westwood teachers, conditions which do not coincide with the guidance offered by DESE. Step back from the hybrid model and pursue a phased-in approach grounded in health and safety benchmarks. Christina Martin of 23 Brookfield Road. Issues around race, institutional racism, and violence against people of color continue to be prominent in national news, and they have real impacts on Westwood students. Is it possible to integrate more anti-racist education with the curriculum? Will you continue parent engagement and workshops as you have done in past years? Christina Martin again, this phased re-entry seems like a smart approach, thank you. Karen Albers of 105 Edgewood Road. I noted on the coronavirus map of Massachusetts that Westwood has been raised from green to yellow. What is the guideline if or when the school plan will change based on the average daily rates going up? Marianne Miller of
Wait,
27 Hooper Street.
John, I just want to stop for a second. I just want to respond to that comment about the yellow, us moving from green to yellow. So just a couple of things on that. The yellow metric allows for the hybrid model, but I want folks to know that we will continue to work with the Department of Public Health. We'll be watching what happens in the community. We're looking for trends, and we will review the data weekly with public health. So I think that's an important point to make at this juncture. So continue on. Thank you.
Marianne Miller of 27 Hooper Street. Will the content of the CBA memorandum agreement be made available to the public? William Brooks, RN of 1666 High Street. Shouldn't the district be using the daily testing rather than attestation to screen students when it is clear from the UMass study, among others, that they are contagious, likely more contagious than adults when they have no symptoms? Donna Morrison of 303 Oak Street. Submitted Chromebook for refresh August 12th and no notification yet as to pickup. What will be the time frame on that for incoming 5th grader? Marianne Miller of 27 Hooper Street. Per the DESE recommendation, is the Westwood Public Schools considering allowing children of teachers to actually attend in-person classes 4 days a week, or will they be following the district hybrid model under which all other children are subject? Are other children of working parents under consideration for this 4-day option, especially those children of essential workers who have been working through the pandemic? Karen Albers of 105 Edgewood Road. With the change that the middle school now will not be taught with the in-person class, will the children that are fully remote have all the same blocks and schedule? Will they have teachers experienced in each subject, or will teachers be shared across classes to help cover? Nancy Hernandez of 2 Summer Street. Are the students participating remotely expected to be online for a full 75 minutes at the high school? William Brooks again, with the recent UMass study indicating that asymptomatic children have higher viral loads and are probably more contagious than adults, and the CDC case studies showing clear contactless transmission even while masked, is the school committee reconsidering a safer, fully remote start? Jen McPherson of 30 Willow Street. How will teachers be supported in working with 2 groups of students at the same time, those at school and those at home? I understand the technology that was just described, but it's hard to imagine how a classroom teacher will be able to effectively engage 2 groups simultaneously in learning while managing the classroom without sacrificing effective pedagogy for elementary students. Also, how will we protect student privacy? Sandra Castaldini of 54 Birch Street writes, 2 out of 3 of my children won't see the inside of a school until almost October, and we have no idea what the pandemic will look like then. This is very, very disappointing. They were only getting 2 days to begin with. I think this is unacceptable. Please reconsider this timeline. We have been waiting and waiting. This is a full month of school. This is a full month after school was slated to start. Remote is not the same as in person. Students with siblings will have a real problem with this. Niraj Dalal of 165 Alder Road writes, how has the school reviewed the increased internet bandwidth requirements to support a hybrid and remote model? Have upgrades been made? Karen Albers again, I would like to respond to the comments that have portrayed teachers in a negative light. The teachers are trying to safely return to the classroom and not risk the health of our children or themselves. To the teachers of Westwood, please know that there are many, many parents that do support you and the jobs you are doing. Thank you again. Allison Moran of 39 Cobley Street. Concern for younger elementary students with special education needs and remote learning, which has been proven to be ineffective to this cohort. Heather Morrison of 74 Magnolia Drive. As an administrator at our special education residential and day program, I can report to you that you can reopen safely. Our residential program of nearly 150 children has remained open throughout the pandemic. Our day program just completed a full-time, in-person successful summer program with no COVID-19 cases, student or staff. Reopening can be done safely. Follow the recommendations of medical experts, not the teachers union. The AAP strongly advocates that the goal is having students physically present in school. The importance of in-person learning is well documented, and there is already evidence of the negative impacts on children because of the closures in the spring. Lengthy time away from school places children and adolescents at considerable risk for educational deficits, social emotional impact, and in some cases mortality. In addition, these risks disproportionately impact Black, Latinx, and Native American children. School administrators and teachers must acknowledge that COVID-19 policies are intended to mitigate, not eliminate risk, but implementation of several coordinated efforts, such as cohorting students, mask wearing, and distancing, can greatly reduce risk, especially while community transmission is low. I implore you all to bring the students back into the classrooms. The children are depending on us. William Brooks. It is amusing that so many parents in Westwood have forgotten that we have a low case count only because children have not been in school, parents have been working remotely, and that there are many vulnerable people on our town who have benefited from that. It will not be so amusing in September and October. Stephanie Morales of 129 Washington Street. Is there a reason that the agenda item related to the DESE guidance pertaining to childcare for children of teachers dated 8/21 was not addressed at this time? Thank you. Kate Wynn, hold on one moment, wrap that. Kate Wynn of 10 Cedar Hill Drive writes, my children and I have benefited immeasurably from the Westwood schools. I'm very grateful for the work of everyone on this committee. The teachers union has my full support. Unions were put in place for exactly this situation. I hope that when my children are adults and possibly union members themselves, they will remember this thoughtful example. Meg Maloney has submitted a message from several people. Meg Maloney of 133 Pond Plain Road, Judy Sullivan of 196 Hartford Street, Amy Lydon of 9 Burgess Ave, Kevin Lydon of 9 Burgess Ave, Brian Greeley of 101 Pond Plain Road, Jasmine Lellick of 29 Chamberlain Ave, Caitlin Adamakis of 1686 High Street, Sheila Hanley Longval of 54 Willow Street, and Melinda Garfield of 54 Pond Plain Road. 10 people signed this letter, which was sent directly to emails. I will try to type the rest of it here. As fellow educators and parents of Westwood students, we're counting on you to keep our children and the teachers of Westwood safe. We recognize the multiple constituencies you represent. However, we want to ensure safe working conditions for Westwood teachers, conditions which do not coincide with the guidance offered by DESE. Parents, some educators themselves, will interpret DESE guidelines to their maximum benefit. The recent DESE statement creates untenable expectations with no regard for established, measurable medical benchmarks. It is important to see beyond the voices of special interests and reach for the best possible outcome for our community. Please prioritize the expertise of scientists and educators as you make final decisions about the Westwood reopening plan. Accurate COVID testing, comprehensive contact tracing, and a complete standardized air quality plan is essential. Consequently, we ask the district to step back from the hybrid model and pursue a phased-in approach grounded in health and safety benchmarks. We trust you to keep the teachers of Westwood healthy, thereby keeping the children of Westwood healthy, in turn promoting the health of Westwood families, enabling the recovery of the state of Massachusetts. We are all connected. The health and safety of our teachers impacts all of us. It is our responsibility to keep them safe, regardless of the agendas of individual factions or the political motivations of DESE. We, the undersigned Massachusetts educators, request you consider our appeal as you finalize Westwood's plan to open schools. Henrik Sejic of 98 Sycamore Drive writes, the Committee and Westwood Teachers Association must provide specific and detailed metrics of student progress for the hybrid and remote models. What measurements have been discussed and implemented to ensure students will be on track? Please provide information. Donna Morrison of 303 Oak Street writes, thank you to all administrators, teachers, and school committee, and to Superintendent Parks for all of your hard work for the safe return to school for our children. I support your hard work and am very grateful. Whatever decision is made, it will be the best for all concerned. Mrs. Lewis, that concludes public comment.
Carol, you're muted.
How many times during a meeting will someone have to say that to me? And I've been on a zillion Zoom calls, so I should know better. Apologize for that. That concludes our public participation at this point in the meeting, and we are going to move on now to action items. The first is the response to DESE's August 21st, 2020 guidance regarding children of teachers.
Would you like me to say a few words about this, Mrs. Lewis?
I really would, please.
Okay.
I was waiting for you to come.
Yeah, so we received some guidance, I believe, well, you just said the date. Was that last Friday? The days are blurring, to be quite
Yeah.
honest with you at this
The
point.
21st, last Friday.
Okay, so last Friday we received some guidance from DESE, and it had to do with their strong recommendation that districts allow children of Massachusetts educators to attend school fully in person. And so I think this has been a topic of conversation among many superintendents, many districts. And let me just say that I fully acknowledge that parents across, all walks of life, all parents, I understand, are really struggling right now in terms of this hybrid model and figuring out how to support their kids in that model. So I'm very aware of that. I think what's happening here is that what we're finding is that in schools, our staffing model depends on our staff being physically present in the building, right? So if we don't have a teacher in a third grade, then we can't have that third grade. And so the discussion among superintendents has really been about, could there be reciprocity effectively where we would agree that our Westwood students whose parents are teachers in other districts could attend both in the Monday and the Thursday cohort, and that other districts would then do the same for us. And that would allow us to work through what frankly are some very significant challenges in terms of our staffing model right now. So, Westwood is talking about this tonight. I know that many area districts have already decided that they will do this. And in fact, I have been receiving emails from Westwood residents who work in those districts asking the Westwood School Committee to take up this question. So I would say that, first of all, that if Westwood were to take this step, we would really only be able to offer this to K-6. So in terms of our cohorting model and numbers, I don't think that we would be able to support something beyond grade 6. I have taken a look at some of these numbers. If this is something that the school committee would like to move forward with, then what I would do is I would go to this group of parents, Westwood residents who are educators, and I would see what percentage of them would take us up on this offer. I don't think it would be 100%. That's not the experience that superintendents in other districts are having. And then we would look to determine if we have space in our cohorts, because of course, a lot of work has been done to create cohorts that are the appropriate size, and we have committed to 6 feet of physical distancing. And then we could do it. I've taken a very sort of a high level look at it, and I believe that we would be able to do it for K-6 within our established cohort sizes.
So Well, it makes, I mean, K to 6, I think a lot of this stems from what, I mean, after 6th grade, kids probably wouldn't have so much of an impact because generally they'd be able to, it's not an issue in terms of them being home alone.
Right.
So, okay. Does anyone have any comments or questions on this?
I think that we should do what we can to support the hybrid model, because I think it's important to get the kids into the classroom to the extent we can. If not going forward with this is going to cause, is going to risk the hybrid, then I think then I would be in support of it. I also think that, you know, it's a difficult time for every single parent, and we recognize that. And but, you know, we employ teachers, and I think that for the sake of maintaining the hybrid model, for trying to get kids back into the school as much as we can, keeping within our guidelines that we have set, the 6-foot social distancing guideline, then I would be, and if the numbers work, then I would be in support of this.
I should add that, I mean, there are statutory legal entitlements to 12-week leaves of absence under some federal legislation that was passed related to the pandemic. If someone is not able to find daycare because their child's school is in a different model, right? Their school isn't open. And so I guess really what I'm saying here is that I think that it's important for our own staffing model, because it's not in kids' best interest to have a situation where their teachers are out on leave and then we're having to fill with substitutes, right? I mean, if there is a way to facilitate that kind of stability for our students of having their own teachers in front of them consistently, I think that that is in the best interest of, you know, of our students. And so this would be Westwood contributing to this solution in concert with many other districts, right, who would be providing reciprocal support for staff.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
Questions. First I wanted to say, you know, similar to what Maya said, my inclination is to support this. I think it's really important to get the kids back in the classroom. And if that's what, you know, we need to do, then I think we should move forward. But I just wanted to understand if you had a sense of the numbers in terms of how many staff wouldn't be able to go back. And then also, is it just teachers, or would this be open to other staff such as like nursing or janitorial staff, other people that we really need on site to make the hybrid model work? Right.
So no, I mean, at this point, it would be open to teachers, and I include in that, you know, other members of our Teachers Association, nurses, for example, are part of that group, right? You know, unfortunately, I don't think that we have the capacity to expand it to other folks, instructional assistants, for example. We're not able to do that and also meet the parameters of the hybrid model. It's sort of hard for me to give you sort of a clear number about what the impact is here, Amanda. I think that people are struggling. I mean, everyone is struggling, obviously, with daycare issues. I understand that. And I think that my concern has to do with sort of this in and out phenomenon of having to patch things when people are out on leaves. I just think that that is going to be potentially difficult and detrimental in terms of teaching and learning. And I think that that's the phenomenon that I'm trying to avoid.
Mm-hmm. Other comments, questions?
So yeah, I guess I'd just echo the others. I think, you know, we need teachers and we need to have as much stability as possible. I know subs are going to be a challenge this year, as we've talked about. I know there will probably be more people staying up for colds and other things, right, as well, just because that's the guidance. So as much as we can bring stability to the teaching and learning, I think that's important. So I'll support it.
Okay. Charlie?
Emily, when does this decision have to be made?
Well, I would say very soon. I mean, people are, schools are starting on second week of September, and we're having conversations with people where they need to know that they have a plan in place in order to commit to, being at work.
Well, I think, first of all, I applaud them trying to be innovative, come up with new ideas to help people out. I think that's fantastic. And the town's working together. The downside I see is all of this we're doing because of the pandemic. It's just, and we've got a lot of people in Westwood who are taxpayers who have to be in the hospital. They have to, the nurses that die. I've talked to a lot of them. They're essential workers also. And they have a fair, probably, issue available. Should we be supporting them somehow and helping them cover, and support their kids, etc. So that's a side of it that makes me a little uncomfortable in that we're trying to help the teachers, whether they teach in Westwood, their kids go to school, wherever. But we have a lot of other people in the town whose kids are in a difficult situation. And again, I don't know how many. Maybe they only have their daycare, and that's not a problem. But if there would be any way of exploring whether there's others in Westwood who are out there battling every day, essential workers, putting their lives at risk and all of this, that we also ought to be reaching out to help a little bit. Because I do think we should help our teachers who teach elsewhere, live in Westwood, and vice versa. But I'm just saying, are there others out there that we could help who are contributing an awful lot in this difficult time that we could possibly help and have the resources to help?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I'm certainly with you in terms of the level of appreciation that I have for folks who have been really on the front lines of this. And, I acknowledge that this is really, really hard. I mean, I said to somebody recently, there's nothing about the pandemic that is fair, that's for sure. And so while I appreciate, Charlie, that you're saying this from the place and the sentiment of like, what can we do to support people in the community? I would love to be able to support people as well. I have to say that my discussion tonight, it isn't even about like, how can we support teachers? Of course I want to do that, right? But I think I'm making a very pragmatic argument tonight, which has to do with our responsibility to kids in classrooms and how we provide effective instruction for them and how we ensure that our staff is in place, right? It's really, I mean, if it has the benefit of helping somebody, then I'm glad. But I think that what I'm saying is, from a pragmatic perspective, I think that we need to do this in concert with other districts to make sure that schools are able to function and operate with the staff we need in the rooms. And I'll be honest that in order for us to do that, it would be very tight. So I have looked at a couple of grade levels in some elementary schools where it is going to be a challenge to accommodate additional kids in our cohorts while keeping the 6 feet of physical distance. This is why I said I would first have to see what percentage of people were going to take us up on it.
Would it be possible to approve this and also at the same time saying the school department would like to reach out to other residents of Westwood, first essential workers particularly, who are having a hard time at this time, to see if there's any way we could help them, at least to say, now we might not be able to do it, but at least we'll look into it to see if there's something we could do to help them also. By approving the first part, we're also saying we're sensitive to others and would like to see if there is anything we can do, at least explore it.
Charlie, I think you make a great point. And I think in this pandemic, everybody has an issue. Everybody is struggling, and we can't possibly make this hybrid work if we, as much as we would like to reach out to everybody and provide them the opportunity to go 4 days a week, that will completely turn the hybrid model on its head, and we won't be able to maintain the 6-foot distancing and so forth. This is to Emily's point, this is not a daycare remedy. This is a staffing concern. And if we don't have the teachers in the schools, we're not going to have schools. So as much as it would be wonderful to help all of the, I don't know anyone who is not having some form of struggle with, dealing with hybrid or any of the forms that are offered these days for purposes of educating our kids. But those are the times we're in right now. There's nothing good. We're just trying to make the best of a bad situation. And again, if we don't have those teachers and we don't provide reciprocity, we're going to have a problem even opening up hybrid. So I would respectfully say to you that I don't think we can go down that road right now. I think we have to stick with this program, and we have very limited time now. September 14th is right around the corner. We start reaching out to folks trying to make accommodations. This isn't going to work. And we need to open these schools. We need to get these kids educated. And I think we need to just focus on this specific issue to make sure we have the staff in our schools. Any other comments on this issue? All right.
I would just underscore, from the staffing perspective, I just do want to support Emily's perspective from special ed that we really do have a legal obligation to staff with people in particular roles with particular credentials, and anything we can do to keep stability in that workforce is critically important.
And that's a key, stability. I mean, in the past, think about it, in our in regular normal times, school committee members, how many times have you heard from parents who are upset by the fact that there's a substitute in the classroom? I mean, it's not the perfect situation. And if we don't support this, this item, then we are just opening up the floodgates for more substitutes, less teaching and learning. No offense to substitutes, but we know they're not the real deal. So that being said, how do we want to go with this? Do we, I mean, time is short.
Could we make a motion that, assuming, once Emily runs the numbers and if the numbers work within the parameters set by the school committee, that we would approve it? Can we do it that way?
I don't see why not.
Because, I mean, clearly, if it's not gonna, if there's too many, or then I would imagine, Emily, you'd come back to us and we would talk about it. But if you run the numbers and you can get the teachers who elect for this option, you can get the students into the cohorts, and we're still maintaining the same distancing that we require in this model, then maybe that could be the motion.
Right.
So we wouldn't need another vote, right?
Right.
Time is of the essence here. We got to get,
yeah.
It is. I will hop right on it. Yeah.
I think you make a good point, Maya. I think we should entertain a motion at this point. There was something else I was going to say, and I just lost my train of thought. So could I get a motion to approve? Let me think of how to word this, or to accept, I'm trying to think, the guidance regarding children of teachers. So somebody help me. How do we want
what if you said, we make a motion to follow the recommendation of the I forget who made the recommendation.
DESE.
Was it
That's
DESE?
the DESE
DESE's
recommendation. Yeah.
to allow the children of teachers to participate in a 4-day, in both cohorts, on the assumption that the numbers would work within the parameters set by the hybrid model.
And
Right.
and amended it only for K through 6.
Yes, sorry, and in grades K through 6.
That sounds like a
I
very
make that motion.
good.
Second.
Okay, there we go. Do we have any further discussion on this point? I think that the one thing I will throw in is that, May, I think you said it twice, and it's so important that as much as we, would like to help everyone, we do need to maintain that social distancing, and we cannot do it by flooding the schools with more numbers than that would essentially make the hybrid model impossible. So does anyone else have any other comments? Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? I'm going to go through the ask for the individual members to respond. Maya?
Yes.
Yes.
Charlie? Tony?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Yes, and I'm a yes as well. So that motion carries. And we will await a further update from you, Emily, on that issue. We're going to move on to approval of the August 5th, 2020 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Okay, do we have any discussion on those minutes? No discussion? Let's see, Maya? All in favor?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Tony?
Yay.
Okay, Amanda?
Yes.
And I also approve those minutes. That motion carries. Approval of the August 6th, 2020 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion? Motion to approve? Did I get
Yes.
one?
Motions, yes. So moved.
Okay. A second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on those August 6 minutes? Seeing none, we will take a vote. Maya?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
And I am also yes, that motion carries. Moving on, approval of the revised 2020-2021 school calendar. Emily, can you just give the highlights of that?
Well, the highlight is that I would suggest that we might want to table this to the next meeting, and I'll say why.
Okay.
So we did answer people's questions about school start, right? And but I think there are still a couple more things to be worked out related to the tentative agreement that has to do with PD days.
Okay.
And so that may or may not impact the last day of school.
Okay, so let's take,
So in order to avoid doing it twice, I think that we should just table this for now and maybe take it up at the next meeting. That's all right.
makes total sense. I know we have another meeting coming up very soon.
Yeah,
Can
I was
just
just going to
ask-
say that we're not messing with vacations or anything. You know, the calendar that the school committee published would still hold.
Okay.
Sorry, Tony.
And I assume, I shouldn't assume anything. But maybe just communication or decision on snow days, how we will handle.
So, yeah, well, you know, I'll throw out what I'm thinking, and obviously this is a school committee issue. I mean, I would think that if we have the infrastructure in place for a remote model, that if we needed a snow day, we could just make it a remote day and count it as a day of instruction. The only exception that I can think to for that is if there was some kind of widespread power outage or something like that. But, you know, if the school committee feels differently, obviously we should speak about that.
Yeah, I think as long as, I'll look to Abby, as long as we can do that and fulfill everything with special ed, then I support it.
Yeah, and I think there might not be a widespread power outage, but there might be students who do have power outages. So I think we need to have a plan to deal with that, even if it's isolated incidents. But assuming we have that and the special ed, then I think we can certainly talk about it.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, good points. All right. moving on from action items, let's move on to new business. Anybody have any new business before we go to,
Sorry, Carol, I think we missed one action
Yep.
item.
did I? Again?
Yeah, it's the vote to ratify the instructional assistance memorandum of agreement.
Oh, yeah, I have an old agenda, so sorry.
So
Okay.
we engaged in impact bargaining with our Instructional Assistants Association. And so I provided you with the MOA that we have reached a tentative agreement with them. It's fairly straightforward. You can see really the questions, I would say, just were pertaining to concerns about the use of sick time, and if IAs were for some reason directed to self-isolate under one of our protocols, how that would or would not impact their sick time. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have it, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
Any questions? No? Okay, so I apologize that I didn't have that. I knew we were going to talk about that, and I didn't have it on my agenda in front of me. Do we require?
Wait, it looks like Abby might have something.
I just
Okay.
wanted to comment that the IA union was very professional and thoughtful and committed to the children in this impact bargaining context, and they engaged very productively, and I appreciate that.
I would echo that. I appreciate that as well. And I also want to thank Abby, because I know that Abby has been wonderful about making sure that everybody's questions are answered. And I think that was really helpful in terms of this process, so that people could feel confident that they had really fully discussed issues and understood the plan for their role. So thank you, Abby, as well.
Okay, so we need to take a vote to ratify the Instructional Assistance Memorandum of Agreement. Okay, so to do this, we are going to, we haven't done this in a while. I'm going to go through each, I'll go through each of you to determine if you vote in favor.
I don't know, is there a motion? I'm not sure.
I don't know if it's a
I think you need a motion to ratify it.
motion to ratify and then vote accordingly. Okay, motion.
So
So
moved.
can I get a, okay.
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on the Instructional Assistance Memorandum of Agreement? Okay, seeing none. All right, Maya,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amanda.
Yes.
Okay, and I am also in favor. So the vote to ratify is 5 in favor, unanimous to ratify the Instructional Assistance Memorandum of Agreement. All right, perfect. Now moving on to new business.
Can
Does
I
anyone?
Yep.
Yes.
Can I just raise one thing on the calendar? Someone pointed out to me that September 28th, which is Yom Kippur, is also the first day that third group of phased in students are supposed to start. Does that mean?
Yeah. No, so I said week of September 28th, but you're absolutely correct that Monday the 28th is Yom Kippur, and that is not a school day on the school calendar, so it would be September 29th.
So the Monday, Tuesday cohort would
Tuesday
start
on Tuesday. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any new business, or do we move on? I think we move on. All right, so at this point, we are to go into executive session. We will need a motion to go to executive session. We are going to executive session to conduct strategy sessions with respect to collective bargaining, which would have a detrimental effect on the position of the school committee if discussions were held in open session. I will note that the committee will not return to open session. So at this point, I need a roll call, a vote to enter into executive session. Can I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Assuming no discussion, we will have our vote here. Maya,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
and Amanda.
Yeah.
Okay, and I am also in favor to move to executive session. So at this point, we need to adjourn the open session. So motion to adjourn,
Motion.
second,
Second.
okay. Maya,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amanda,
Yes.
I am also in favor. All right, so we will adjourn this meeting and move to executive session. Thank you, everyone.